Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Brianne Roth. I'm the Public Programs Coordinator here at the Nantucket Historical Association, and I want to welcome you all for this very special evening lecture. Before we get things started tonight, if everyone could please take a moment to make sure your cell phones are on silent so we do not disrupt today's lecture. To give you a little background on our speaker tonight, Nan Daschler-Hauser, I'm going to give you a brief bio and then we'll turn things over to her. She has been the president and director of the Center for Cetacean Research and Conservation since 1991. Her home base is in Rarotonga, Cook Islands, where she is the principal investigator for the Cook Islands Whale Research Project and director of the Cook Islands Whale and Wildlife Center. Nan's research includes population identity and abundance, photo identification, acoustics, genetics, surface and underwater behavior, droning, stable isotope analysis, navigation and migration, and satellite tagging of whales and dolphins. Her research has been featured in numerous documentaries that have appeared on National Geographic, the Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, the Smithsonian Channel, and the BBC. Nan is currently involved in 2 films, a television documentary, a National Geographic article, and writing a book while continuing her 26 years of research. She has authored and co-authored over 50 scientific publications. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Nan Hauser.
Thank you. Is this working? Okay. I'm used to holding a microphone, so I'm going to use my hands a lot. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. This is beautiful. There's so many friends in the audience. I can't believe it. It's really amazing who showed up from far, far away, so thank you very much. We're going to start just with some PowerPoint slides, and then we're going to show you a video that we made especially for tonight. So, shall I start? Okay. Well, I'm very lucky. I went to school and studied art, and then I got 2 nursing degrees and a captain's license and polarity therapy license, and then about 27 years ago, I said, I'm going to follow my passion. I'm going to study whales and dolphins underwater. And everyone said, you're crazy. You get seasick, and you need to get permits, and you're going to get killed and all this stuff. And I said, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. So here we are. And I'm going to talk about those past years and what we've learned, which is amazing. This is Alyssa Stoller. She's my head research assistant. She's incredible. She comes everywhere with me. And this would be her 4th season. Yeah, 4th season in the Cook Islands. So yay, Alyssa. All right, well, let's start. I'm going to talk about a lot, so we'll go kind of fast, okay? Obviously, this is a humpback whale, and I guess all of you know that you have 3 right whales going past your shore right now. They've been here, Scott, for 3 days?
4.
4 days. Very exciting. And you've also had humpbacks here last month, so things are good. Go ahead. Well, I did exactly what I said I was going to do. And that doesn't even look like a photograph, but it is, because we had Google come out with a camera that films in 360 degrees. It's Catlin Seaview Survey. Some of you may have heard of them from Australia. And so indeed, we spend a lot of time underwater. I live in Rarotonga. I've been there for the past, this is 20 years now. I went for a month, but instead it's turned into 20 years. And it's been quite exciting. You can see it's a volcanic island. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's 1,000 miles past Tahiti and 1,000 miles from Tonga. So if you run out of anything, you have to fly to Auckland, New Zealand, which is a 4-hour flight. So you can see the Cook Islands has 15 tiny little islands. In fact, these 15 islands total 149 square kilometers. That's about 93 square miles, over 2 million square kilometers of ocean. So it's tiny, tiny, tiny little islands popping up out of nowhere. If you look at Rarotonga, and then you look up by Manihiki, that would be like going from Florida to the Great Lakes. So we have just vast ocean. Here are some of the islands that I spend most of my time on. Aitutaki, which someone said they sailed through. Did you go to Aitutaki? I know someone here has been to the Cook Islands. Did you go to Aitutaki?
No, we went just to
Rarotonga? Okay. it always shocks me when people say, I've been to Rarotonga. I say, what? Because it really is in the middle of nowhere. So Aitutaki is a partial atoll. It's beautiful there. There's actually a color called Aitutaki Lagoon Blue. This is Achu below here, and Achu is actually Makatea. It is the reef itself. So when you're standing on the cliffs of Achu, you look down and the whales are directly below you. And because all these islands and atolls drop off so sharply, the whales come up right next to the shore. So I am so spoiled. About where that eagle is from shore, that's where the reef is, that's where the whales are. So when we work in Quebec, we're out there in a boat, we go out for maybe 3 hours, we have on these heavy-duty suits, and we start looking for whales. In Rarotonga, we stand on the shore and we go, oh, there's one. Oh, there's one. It's pretty fun. Go ahead. This is Palmerston Atoll, where I actually started. Palmerston Atoll is 300 miles from Rarotonga. It's about a half a mile long. There are 36 people there, but there were 36 when I got there. I delivered a baby there, because I'm also a nurse, so I do all the medicine on the islands, stitch people up and deliver babies and do all kinds of stuff. And then I took one of the children from there and adopted her. So it's quite an interesting story about Palmerston. It was a whaler who was from Gloucestershire, England, and had 3 Polynesian wives. And I'll tell you the story later on the rooftop if you want to hear it. Here's Rarotonga. It's the biggest of the islands. We can't really get into the middle. It's very thick bush. We live in the bush, actually. And you can see the little motus there. We have a little lagoon. It's probably because the side of the volcano had a leak. It had a fissure that the lava came out of. So here's Nantucket, your island. And so I wanted to talk a lot tonight about the islands and what it's like living on the islands. And I love it here. I haven't been here since 1970, I think. It's changed a lot. But you have the same kind of problems we do, and we all need to be conscientious about that. Of course, I'm not going to tell you about whaling because I'd be preaching to the choir. But I do know, this is what we always heard, there are apparently 3 types of whalers. Those who desire, I wrote it wrong, to purchase their own whale ship, those who were seeking adventure, and those who were running from something on shore. So it's very interesting about how the New England whalers and the whalers from Nantucket ran out of whales and then went down around Cape Horn and headed towards the South Pacific. So the first Yankee whalers, they rounded the Cape in 1791, and that was to enter the Pacific Ocean to hunt sperm whales. They whaled off the coast of Chile, and by 1792, they'd reached Peru, and then they carried on. They kept going. By 1840, the fleet stood at 552 ships, barks, brigs, and schooners, and New England whaling peaked in 1846, when 736 vessels were registered under the American flag. From 1846 to 51, the trade averaged some 638 vessels. That's a lot. The whalers often stopped at tropical Pacific islands for fresh fruits, vegetables, and sometimes more crew. They also had a chance to repair damages to their ship. And oh yes, to visit the beautiful South Pacific Vaines. Now, if anybody speaks Maori, that's women. And that's why there's a lot of mixed blood in the Cook Islands and all the way across Oceania, is because a lot of the sailors came and procreated and then left. So they're spreading the gene. This is our little island of Rarotonga, and you can imagine what it was like for them. They went, oh, great. I mean, here's an island. We can get fruit so we don't get scurvy because they need the vitamin C, of course. And they could, actually what they would do is take the whale meat and put it on a wagon and go around the island and trade the whale meat for fruits and vegetables. And they had a good time with the women because the women are very beautiful with long hair. And back then they didn't even wear tops. So it's totally different culture, the Maori culture. So piranha whaling, that was very big in Cook Strait. And they came, that was in New Zealand, but we had quite a lot of whalers coming in through this whole area of Oceania. The reason I put this here is because I take whalers out with me now. And I can honestly say that every single whaler that's ever been on my boat cries. They cry like a baby. They can't believe it. Instead of what they think they were doing when they were killing big fish, they are now having this incredible relationship, watching a mother and calf, having a whale come right up to the boat. And I swear the whales know. They know because they come up and they look at them. They tip their head and they take that eye and they just look at them. So the piranhas, after killing thousands of whales for all those years, and they're famous for it, they decided that they were going to help us. They were going to help the South Pacific Whale Research Consortium in Cook Strait. My friend Nadine went to them and said, how would you like to be whale researchers instead of whale killers? And they said, okay, great. And the Piranha brothers went back up on the hills, and they'd look out, and they'd see a blow, and they'd go, there she blows. And then they'd hit each other and say, I saw it first. No, I did, just like the old days. So Peter Piranha, who's right there with the hat and the mustache, he's been out on the boat with me, and amazing times. I've had Russian, Japanese, all different kinds of whalers come out, and it's quite an amazing experience. So here's Nantucket Harbor, which I can't believe how much has changed since I've been here. And go ahead, here's our harbor. So we have little pungas. We have a few sports fishing boats that aren't very big. You can see back there that we do get containers delivered on container ships, but there's a big difference, although we have the same problems. I'm going to talk very quickly about that. Of course, the environment. And this is Nantucket and Rarotonga. I don't want to stand in your way. Can you see okay? Okay. Climate change and associated oceanographic changes, coastal development, which we all suffer from, marine pollution, protection of vulnerable habitat, conservation of marine biodiversity. And all of these are very important things to think about on both islands, even though one is so far away in the South Pacific and one is we're standing on right here off of the Cape. Resource use. We have a lot of fisheries exploitation. I don't know if you do or not, but our EEZ is so big that we cannot monitor it. We just don't have the money. We have a ship to go out there, but we can't afford the fuel to send the ship out to monitor. So we have illegal fishing everywhere. It's just horrible. Marine tourism, non-living resources like seabed mining. The Cook Islands has these mines that apparently are worth millions and millions of dollars. What are they there? Manganese nodules? No, anyway, they're apparently worth a lot. So they're hiring these companies to come and start vacuuming the bottom of the ocean floor at 5 miles deep. We're a little worried. Renewable energy, development, commercial marine traffic, which we both have problems with. And then governance, creating marine sanctuaries. And we did. And I'm happy to say that in 2001, I created a whale sanctuary there in the whole EEZ. So that is that's the exclusive economic zone. So that's over 2 million square kilometers of protected ocean for the whales. And now we created a marine sanctuary. And it was the biggest in the world, but now New Caledonia followed suit, and theirs is even bigger. It's awesome. High seas governance, multi-use conflict resolution mechanisms, marine boundaries, integrated governance systems, domestic and international, and monitoring and enforcement, which is really big. I'm sure it is here too. When we went out to the lighthouse this morning, we saw the guides out there. We're monitoring the seals and the people and the boats and things like that. Did find a seal that we thought was hit by a boat, but it might have been bitten by a shark. We're not sure. Okay. Community education, big one. And this is why we're here. Navigational safety, piracy, food safety, well-being of coastal communities, including food security. We run out of food all the time. And we have to bring our food in from New Zealand, and it takes a long, long time. And then nobody can afford to buy it anyway by the time it gets there. Mitigation of extreme climatic events, sea level rising, tsunamis, and hurricanes. We had 5 cyclones in 5 weeks in 2005. Just decimated the island. But build it back up again. The leaves come back. And it's pretty scary. We have tsunamis and things like that. Public awareness of ocean issues and outreach. And I built this whale education center. We call it the Whale and Wildlife Center. I built it back in 1999, and it's just been a blast. It's really a good place for people to come and learn. Just like here. So I'm going to talk about our whales a little bit, and then your whales a little bit, because take the equator, and you have northern hemisphere humpback whales, and you have southern hemisphere humpback whales. And we don't really see them cross the equator anywhere except Costa Rica. Very strange. So our whales, our humpbacks, feed in Antarctica. And they feed and feed and feed. They gorge themselves. They just eat for months. And then for 6 to 8 months, they migrate through Oceania and back down again, and they don't eat. They fast for that 6 to 8 months. It's just absolutely amazing. They come to Oceania to mate and give birth. Your whales, of course, feed in the colder climates up north, like Alaska and things like that, and here, Stellwagen Bank, and then they go to warmer waters. So the migration question was a really big one for us out there. Nobody's done a lot of research out there except in about the past 20 years, and there are only a few of us. There are just a handful of us that do it. So we had to figure out this migration thing, because we thought, okay, then they just go down to Antarctica, and then they go back up, and they keep doing that. Well, they don't. By satellite tagging, we find that they come up, well, actually, they come up around the Cook Islands, and then they travel. We've even had them go all the way to New Caledonia, and then they come back down again. So they travel to all the different islands of Oceania. So we had a lot less whales than we thought, and that's why we're the last migratory endangered population of humpbacks in the world. There is another endangered population of humpbacks in Oman, but that's a non-migratory population. So I love it. They come and they birth right in front of us. And it's so awesome to see babies being born. And here are some. And they stay very close to the shore because of killer whales and sharks and things like that. So here's a newborn calf taking its first breath. It's kind of a porcelain-looking animal. They get beat up very quickly, believe me. So you know, of course, you've seen humpback tail fluke identification catalogs. And so you're luckier up here because the black and white different patterns, excuse me, on the fluke of a humpback whale is much more distinct here. We have a lot more white flukes, and it may be because of the ice in Antarctica. We're not sure, but it's harder to identify. These are 3 very different tail flukes, but it is hard. The very strange thing is that there's site fidelity in humpbacks. They tend to come back to the same area. Perhaps not every year, but maybe every 5 years or 10 years. But you see this site fidelity, and you get a catalog together, and then you go, oh, this one came back, and this one came back, and this one came back. Well, in the Cook Islands, in 19 years, we've only had 2 come back. So we're like a bus stop. No one can figure it out. It's just, I keep saying year after year, we're going to figure this out, but we haven't yet. It may be because there was illegal Soviet slaughter. It was whaling through there. Nobody knew about it. It wasn't that long ago. It was the 70s, 60s, 70s, and they really wiped out hundreds of thousands of whales near us. So I was photographing this little calf breaching in front of Black Rock. Black Rock is a very famous place where everybody goes to watch whales. And his mother was swimming alongside the boat very quietly. And then, boom, she just came up right next to us. And we work off of little tiny boats. And there she was. And I looked at her and I went, oh my God, I know this whale, because she is huge. Now, look at that pectoral fin. I am 1/3 the size of that pectoral fin. And so I wish I had a pointer. If you put my head at the end there, I'd just be 1/3 of the way up her pectoral fin. But she was big. So I knew her. And she said, surprise, it's me, Putty Putty, and I'm back. And indeed, she was back, and it was amazing. She was easy to identify. As she almost knocked us over. She filled our boat with water, actually. Sure enough, 4 years after we first met her, she returned to the Cooks. And see the large black dot on her tail fluke? Well, that was pretty easy to see. And if you saw the movie Whale Rider, anybody see Whale Rider? Oh, great. Okay, that is Rauri Pertini, who plays the grandfather. And he's really mean in the film, but he's absolutely one of my best friends and the funniest guy I know. He's hysterical. So he's with us a lot, and he loves the whales. He actually named Puti Puti. And he was coming back the next day after we saw her, so it was all perfect. So, sampling method, we can also match up whales by looking at their DNA, because just like all of us, whales have unique DNA. And so we get a piece of skin off of every whale. That's Alyssa's job. We can scoop with a strainer. We have different methods. We have, well, Carlos is being very silly here, but we have a gun that shoots a little dart, and it takes maybe half a pea size. And poor Alyssa, she's the person who gets to jump in and get the skin from the whale. And it was a couple years ago, I said, "Oh, Alyssa, please get skin off that whale. Can you get in quickly, quickly, quickly?" Because I'm kind of Nazi camp on the boat. And I go, "Please jump in." And she jumps in and she's swimming over to the whale as fast as she can. Suddenly I look over here and the whale surfaces. And I look over and I go, "Oh my God, that's a tiger shark." And I've sent her over to the tiger shark to get skin. So I quickly went over in the boat and said, "Get in." She's very good. Anyway, so we collect this slough skin, and then we sequence the DNA, and we look at it, and we have a catalog. And so we can look in New Caledonia, because Claire Garrigue is collecting skin there, and we can look in Tonga and Samoa and Tahiti and all the way across Oceania and match the DNA. So that's another way of finding who's where. Okay. This is another way. Did I even say what that is? No. Okay, what is that? No. This is very weird. Not many people in the world find this, but I do. And they laugh at the University of Auckland all the time. They're like, "This is Nan Hauser. She's the one who finds all the whale sperm." Now, you should have gotten that. Come on, the mother lode, or more accurately, the father lode. We find whale sperm all the time. I don't know why, but we won't get into that, because the last time I spoke here a couple nights ago, we were having dinner and someone asked me about whale sex, and that kind of took over the conversation. So we won't get into that right now. So we really wanted to know who these whales were, where they were going. And this was like a whole political thing, because the Japanese whalers wanted to add humpbacks to their quota. And we didn't want them to add humpbacks, obviously. We don't want them to whale at all. I mean, our whole thing is, let's stop whaling. And so we knew about this area in Brazil, but we didn't know about the other areas. And, oh, sorry, I got that louder. And so we started satellite tagging, really amazing project. This is a satellite tag. It's not very big, it's about this big. It puts a little battery in it and has an antenna. So that's fine. Satellite tag, that part is easy. It's getting it to stay in the whale, like in the blubber of the whale. And so, first of all, this satellite has to be somewhere where it comes out of the water. Tag has to come out of the water, and it has to pick up at least 3 satellites to give a Latin long and say where that whale is. And go ahead. So we decided we were going to start tagging, and they sent Igor from Brazil, and we had a pole. It was from a windsurfer, and this is before we got a better method, which we can show you a film if you want to see, but we used to take this pole, and we were thinking, oh my God, this pole isn't long enough. Well, as you can see, we were just learning, and the whale decided that it was going to come in the boat, so we didn't tag it, obviously. Go ahead. But the whale lunged into the boat, almost hitting me in the head. It just kind of touched my head, and we hit the deck, and then instead of squashing us, it just slid down the back. I think we have it on film here. Okay, watch out. my assistant from Alaska at the time, screaming. Go ahead. I just gave one scream. That was all I needed to do. But everybody was pretty shocked for a while. And the fisherman whose boat it was like, "You are never using my boat again." And it was the tiniest boat ever. It was about half the size of this boat right here. Anyway, so the gifts from the whale. Whale was very nice. He left me barnacles and whale lice. Did you know that whales have lice? They jump on you, and they're huge. They're really incredible. Okay, so shortly after that, I think it was the next day, we did our first tag, and it was 22854. 22854 was a great tag because it allowed us to fight politically. And what happened, it's a great story. Tagged her tag transmitted for 15 days, and she swam all around Rarotonga with a calf. And then she took off, and it stopped working. And there are lots of reasons why it can stop working. The saltwater switch on the top could go under the blubber. The battery can die. It can come out like a splinter. You know, the whale's blubber just goes, "Take this out of me," and it goes out. And anyway, I had great faith that it was going to come back. But I worked with all men, and they were like, "No. Stop talking about it. It's not coming back. Give up." And every time I give a talk, I'd say, "But maybe it's going to start transmitting." On Christmas Day, 3 months later to the day, I got a phone call from NOAA that said, "Hello, darling, your tag started transmitting today, and it's 3,000 miles south of Tahiti." And I just screamed. I was so happy. And that's because we could follow it now until January 17th. And you can see how it followed. I should tell you where we are here. Okay, that's the Tongan Trench. And at the top of the Tongan Trench, it's so deep that you can fit Mount Everest in there and it'd be underwater. So then you come down the Tongan Trench, and that's the Louisville Ridge there, and those are parallel fractures. And the whale went right along the parallel fractures, made an angled turn, and made another angled turn, and came down just to Area 61 where we wanted it to go, because then I could go to Tokyo and say to the whalers, "Guess what? You can't add humpbacks to the quota because they're from an endangered population in the Cook Islands and across Oceania." And so that's the big thing, fighting with hardcore science. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I mean, I love activism, and I can jump up and down and scream and shout, but it's not really going to do a whole lot. But if you write the papers and have the good evidence. I mean, I've got, what paper am I up to? 50-something? 53 published papers or something. And it's just, you fight with science, and it's great. It works. So that was very good. That was a very happy thing. The Japanese did not put humpbacks on their quota. So we did some more tagging, and we did it with Travis Horton, and his parents are here, and his brother's here. I'm so happy that you came tonight, because Travis is like one of our closest friends and so important on our team. He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And so he does a lot of the work and follows the whales with us. He does a lot of the mathematics. Anyway, if you look at this whale right here, this is 37282. This whale left Rarotonga, and look at all those angled turns. It's crazy. That whale's just all over the place. And then it went up to Pago Pago and Samoa. And a lot of our whales go up towards Tutuila and other places in Samoa. But what's funny about those lines? Anybody notice anything about the turns? The turns are so interesting. And so this is Travis's theory, and it's so cool. These turns are exactly 23.439 degrees and multiples of that. And that is, come on, think back to, sorry? It's the tilt. It's the Earth's axis. 23.439 degrees is the Earth's axis. It's the tilt of the planet. And they are using celestial navigation and mathematics. And gravity, it has to do with the declination of the moon, to make angled turns. And not only do humpbacks do this, Travis said, come on, let's get all the tracks from all the other people. We did the killer whales, they're doing it. We did turtles, sooty shearwaters, albatross, ospreys, elephants. So we have the sky, the land, and the sea, and these animals are using mathematics and celestial navigation to navigate. It's fascinating. Yeah. So, okay, we wanted to do more tagging. Of course, the first thing you need to do, first I should say no one on my team gets paid. We're just all passionate about what we do. We're going to change that someday. And so we had to get the funding for this project to do more tagging, and believe it or not, Greenpeace gave it to us. So then you have to find a suitable boat, because we weren't going to use that little boat that the whale came in anymore. And so we got an inflatable from South Africa, and they brought it. Did you know that? It came all the way from South Africa. And we got it christened here. You break a coconut, and you pour it over the boat. And here the fishermen put down their beers, and they came over, and I read a little poem. And sure enough, it was safe to go. So off we went. Here's my team. That was my perfect team. The little, oh gosh, I can't see the boy with the hat and the black shirt on? That's Cameron. He was very young. He was on the team. He just started. He was adorable. And then this was 12 years ago when I met him, and I said, Cameron, I adore you. You're going to marry my daughter, Allie. And he went, oh, for God's sakes, I'm not going to marry your daughter, Allie. I don't even know who she is. They just had a baby. They got married last year, and they just had a baby, so I was right. And he's lovely. He's from New Zealand originally. Anyway, then we needed a vehicle that has four-wheel drive that works, because you all know on an island how long cars last. Not very long. They rust out. Then the satellite tags, I opened them up, and even though I'm a nurse and I'm used to sharp things, I went, I'm not doing it. They're not really that big, but I still said, I can't do that. And then I did start doing it, and the whales didn't even care. They didn't care at all, so it was fine. You have to have an anchoring system that actually holds the tag into the blubber. I won't put it in the mussel, but I'll put it in the blubber. Okay, this is satellite tagging. We got really good at it, really, really good at it, and we just went around and started tagging them all. Good. Then again, looking at migration, we looked at bathymetrics, which is the bottom of the ocean floor, and geomagnetics, because of course magnetite, biomagnetite, all that stuff. Travis and I are still looking for the biomagnetite, where it is in these whales. Thermals, acoustics, and now gravity. Gravity is a really big thing we're looking at. But if you look at the ocean floor, it's fascinating. And of course, these animals can't see because they're so deep, but they can feel, and they're sensing something. They have the ability to sense things that we don't. So this is some of our whales, and you can see Rarotonga and Achu and Aitutaki and Palmerston, and then we're actually out of the Cook Islands heading towards Niue, which is its own country. There's Samoa up there, and Vava'u is Tonga. So our whales all go to the west, and I always said, even before this, that our whales went to the west, and indeed they do. And I'm going to tell you something a little bit later about how their song goes the other direction. Strandings. I can't believe it because we're such a little island, but we have lots of strandings, and they're incredible events. These are just a few of them. This is Kakara, and it's a Ziphius cavarostris, which is a beaked whale, and it's stranded at Teukio School. Kids your age, Connor, and all the kids went out, and they rescued it. It had come over the reef, and it was in the lagoon, and they circled it, and they sang beautiful Maori songs. And they called me, and I went out, and then the whale died with all the children. It was a very emotional moment. We made a film about it because this woman, June, who was the headmaster, got everyone to sing happy songs about the circle of life and how things die. And then we buried it right there at the school. And so it means a lot to the kids there. Of course, I necropsied it first. And when I necropsy, Here, when you necropsy something, they put all these big plastic ribbons around that says, don't come near. I say to the locals, because it's their whales, please come help. Please come take what you want from the whale. And indeed, they did help. So it's very important to look at the stomach contents to see how deep that whale goes, what it eats. Actually, this whale had died so quickly that some of the stomach contents were still moving in my hands. It's unbelievable. So this guy works for Air New Zealand. He fixes the planes, and he also got very involved. We send, you'll laugh, but all the way from the Cook Islands, we send mandibular fat, ears, eyes, different parts of the whale to Woods Hole to be analyzed by Darlene Ketton. And in there, you're smiling. Do you have something to do with Woods Hole? Oh my gosh! Do you know Darlene?
No, but I work with Fred.
Oh, you work with Fred. Okay, great. That's great. Fred works with Darlene. Fred is amazing. Okay. So beware of explosions, because whales love to explode, especially when they've been out at sea for a while. Oh my God, we just brought one in. I think it had been dead for about 9 months. And we didn't put it in this. It was just blubber. You couldn't, the fisherman said it was a colossal squid. And we went out there and we went, nope, smells like whale. And it was just incredible. And then Alyssa wakes up the next morning and she goes, oh my God, you know when I stuck the GoPro under the water, under all that smelly floating blubber? There's a vertebra. So we had to go back and get the vertebra, which wasn't easy. But we did. Okay, in another case of a stranded Xiphias, I found a plastic bag in the first of the 11 stomachs. We find plastic bags and mylar balloons in animals all the time. I'm sure you do too. It's just horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Do your beach cleanups all the time. They see these plastic bags and balloons and any kind of plastic, and they think it's a jellyfish, and they eat it. Mm.
We banned plastic balloons.
Good. Good work. Because a lot of people still don't know that they should ban helium balloons. And yeah, all balloons, really. Good. Okay. This is not a white sperm whale. It's a sperm whale, but it had been at sea long enough for the skin to come off. And this is in Aitutaki. And he buried it. The next time one stranded, we towed it out to sea and left it out there for the sharks to eat it. It's very important. This is what we call a puddle. It's very important to get these parts off the whales, especially the beaked whales, because you probably know about the problem we have with Navy sonar. And the sonar, well, especially you guys, because that's what you're working on. You have a lot of my samples. And so if we don't get the ears out, and Woods Hole taught me how to get the ears out in the Bahamas in the first strandings in 2000. And it's fabulous to get the ears because they can be analyzed by Fred and Darlene. And we can try to figure out how we can work with the Navy and the mid-frequency sonar, which is 242 decibels at 53 Charlie. It's really affecting the whales, but especially the beaked whales. So we did. It's actually easier when the whale is a puddle, when it's been there for a long time. That was actually off the island called Mangaya. Okay, we see sharks caught up in nets. This is a really big thing. Nets are horrible, horrible, horrible. And these animals just decompose, and then the nets keep floating around and catch another animal. This picture was taken by Brian Scarry from National Geographic, who's coming out with us soon, next week, or the week after he's coming out. We're doing a series of articles from National Geographic about whales, but he's an amazing, amazing photographer. He just wrote a couple books on sharks. And, of course, the seals. We don't have seals, but now we are getting more seals. Climate change is really changing things. God, I couldn't believe all your seals this morning when we went out to the lighthouse. But these seals are New Zealand fur seals. That's really far away, but we're getting them. I have one in my freezer right now, actually, and everybody comes over to see it. So behavior, I love it. And you know what? I could talk for 2 hours on behavior, so I cut myself really short on the slides because behavior with whales is so great, and especially underwater behavior. And just try to figure out what they're doing and what's going on in their mind is so much fun. So here's a mother humpback teaching her young calf how to breach. And then here's the calf, and he's newborn, and he's breaching off the seawall. And part of the project, besides taking, in 20 years there, I've taken locals out. I say to the locals, you can come with me. I don't take any paying people. I don't take tourists. I only take locals so that they would learn to take responsibility and ownership of their whales. And it's been really successful. And when I took this picture, I had the prisoners on board. I went to the jailhouse and said, can I have some of the prisoners? And they said, okay. And so they were so excited. The prisoners had been, putting masks over the side of the boat, and they were there for this. So pretty cool. Acoustics, whale song. You've all heard it. It's amazing. You're going to hear it. We're going to play it? Well, if we have time, we will. You've all heard Humpback song, and it's amazing. So humpbacks sing songs that are repeated over and over again. These songs change every year, and they're different the further you get away from your area. So you hear all these different songs, and then the next year, it's one of my yearly moments. I actually get all teary when I hear the new song, because it's so different from the old song. And so we have 20 years just in Rarotonga, but we have like 25, 30 years in different areas. So, okay, go ahead. Next slide. We took 775 songs, and we broke them up into phrases, and then we analyzed them, and we gave each phrase a color. And then we learned that the whales were passing phrases from west to east. Remember I told you that the whales were going east to west? Well, these songs go from Western Australia to Eastern Australia to New Caledonia to Tonga, Samoa, Cook Islands, and French Polynesia. So you cannot tell me that there's not data in those phrases and that song. That song means something. We don't know what it means, but it's absolutely fascinating, and I love it. You can see, we look at the song, we drop hydrophones. Well, you're used to looking at all this too. We drop hydrophones, and all the males sing, and the females just vocalize, but it's the males that sing the songs. Why do you think that is? Why would male humpback whales sing songs? Love songs. Yep. Roger Payne theorized in 1972 that humpbacks sing songs to attract females. And it's very interesting because a male will find a place and he'll hang upside down, perfectly still, on his head like this, just in the vast blue, and he'll sing and sing and sing and sing and sing. And sometimes we can't even find him. We need to talk the military into giving us some kind of positional hydrophones, but sometimes we can't find them, so we just get in the water and look and look and look. And then the females pass by, and they don't necessarily go over and say, hi, you have a beautiful song. Every once in a while, a female will approach a male, but not usually. But they do in Australia. How about that? The females in Australia approach the males. So, yeah, we call them Sheila whales. But ours don't. And I have a whole paper I'm writing about how the male approaches the female and whether she accepts him or not. It's quite interesting. Okay, fish carbon. This is another project we're starting right now. What role can marine vertebrate carbon services play in addressing the global climate challenge? It gets a little complicated, and this is how it works. And you could look at this for a long time. And we used to use this slide, but then my friend Chris made a film about it, so we're going to show you that because it's awesome. It's just a couple minutes. Just fantastic. It explains the whole thing.
exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. We all know that whales eat fish and krill, and some people, certain politicians in Japan for instance, have argued that killing whales is good for human beings, as it boosts the food available for us to eat. And so you would think. But as the great whales declined, so did the numbers of fish and krill. It seems counterintuitive. Surely their numbers would rise as their major predators disappeared. But it now turns out that whales not only eat these animals, they also keep them alive. In fact, they help to sustain the entire living system of the ocean. Whales feed at depth in waters that are often pitch dark, and then they return to the surface, to the photic zone, where there's enough light for photosynthesis to happen. There they release what biologists call fecal plumes, vast outpourings of poo, punamis. These plumes are rich in iron and nitrogen, nutrients which are often very scarce in the surface waters. And these nutrients fertilize the plant plankton that lives in the only place where plants can survive, the photic zone. Fertilizing the surface waters isn't the only thing the whales do. By plunging up and down through the water column, they also keep kicking the plankton back up into the photic zone, giving it more time to reproduce before it sinks into the abyss. Even today, though whale populations have been greatly reduced, the vertical mixing of water caused by movements of animals up and down through the column of the oceans is astonishingly roughly the same as the amount of mixing caused by all the world's wind and waves and tides. More plant plankton means more animal plankton, on which the larger creatures then feed. In other words, more whales means more fish and krill. But the story doesn't end here, because plant plankton not only feeds the animals of the sea, it also absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. When eventually it sinks to the ocean floor, it takes this carbon out of circulation down to a place where it remains for thousands of years. The more whales there are, the more plankton there is. The more plankton there is, the more carbon is drawn out of the air. When whales were at their historical populations, before great numbers of them were killed, it seems that they might have been responsible for removing tens of millions of tons of carbon from the atmosphere every year. Whales change the climate. The return of the great whales, if they're allowed to recover, could be seen as a benign form of geoengineering. It could undo some of the damage we've done, both to the living systems of the sea and to the atmosphere.
Get some water. So I thought that was really well made and explains it very well. And when people say to me, why are whales important? Why do we need whales? This is why. Okay, so here's a male actually standing on his head in Rarotonga, singing away right on the reef. Thanks. So marine mammals reflect the impacts of climate change. We know that. And this is through changes not only in their diet and physical condition, but through shifts in their range and habitat. Researchers say climate change is likely to invite many other species into new habitats. Guess what? You're seeing it right now. You are seeing right whales off Nantucket. We are seeing fin whales and sei whales off of Rarotonga. We're seeing more whale sharks. A lot of places are seeing more turtles, more sharks. Humpbacks are coming in closer in California. We're seeing habitat change. As food changes, water temperature changes, so do these whales, the species of whales. It's very, very interesting. And they're great indicators. I actually was at Los Alamos National Laboratory. They invited me to come and talk to the NASA program about using whales for indicators of climate change, because they find that they create all these incredible maps and these colors, talk about all this stuff, and people don't get it. They just say, oh, okay. But when you can relate to something like a whale, then it hits home more. Because what happens to them ultimately what happens to us. That's what we have to understand. Another program I do with Travis is stable isotopes. In fact, he has a couple hundred of our samples right now from different whales. And one of the ways that researchers can assess impacts on climate change is to evaluate the shifts in feeding strategies. And we can do this by measuring the stable isotopes present in their bones and in their skin, and in any part of them, actually. And even the fur seal and their little whiskers. And their change in diet is very likely in response to environmental changes. Here's Alyssa, here's Katie, who was on the team also. We do a lot of lab work. These poor girls, they have to do everything. They're wonderful. It's interesting. So you see all these women, right, in all these films and stuff, but this year we have all men. We have all males, except for Alyssa and myself. So it changes all the time. New species arriving. This was a great story. This was a humpback whale that was singing a beautiful song. And we were actually filming him underwater. And he was singing and singing in pretty shallow water right up next to the reef. And then this whale comes along. And we said, oh, here comes a joiner. Because males approach males, not females, but males approach males, and they do this whole competitive thing where they compare songs as if to say, my lungs are bigger, I can sing a more beautiful song, I can hold my breath longer, I'm going to sing here, you go sing somewhere else, this is my territory. So it's very interesting. So we just thought, oh, here comes a male joiner. And then we looked again and went, wow, that's a big humpback. And then we went, that's not a humpback. It was a fin whale. We had never seen a fin whale in our whole 19 years that we were so shocked. And this fin whale was hanging out with the humpback. And the humpback was singing to it. And they'd dive together and they'd hang out together. And then they'd surface together and they'd go back down and he'd sing some more. Oh, it's just so beautiful. And we couldn't wait to get up the next morning and go out there. We went out and we found him singing without her. She was gone. And the song was kind of sad. Anyway, you can see how big they are. Humpbacks are huge. And here's this fin whale. Another project we're doing with Travis. Travis's parents out there should be very proud of your son. Is thermal imaging with infrared. And he started, well, Scott Krause actually started it here at the New England Aquarium, which is fascinating in this cold water. So we decided, well, let's try it in warm water. And so we did. Go to the next slide. And sure enough, it worked in warm water too. If you look at the top image there of the whale next to our boat blowing, you can see the infrared just below it there, and you can see the blow. And if you see a white dot over there, you can see how hot our engine is. That shows that. And then you can just pick up the thermals. It's pretty interesting. We haven't played with it a lot, but we've played with it a little bit. This was kind of cool because when he was up in Sitka for a meeting, he just did a couple things and just to see about average temperature and what the temperature of blows and flukes and dorsal fins and nostrils are. So that's good. Good stuff. Making documentaries. Look at Alyssa. She's so happy because Rick Rosenthal, who did Blue Planet and Planet Earth and all these incredible films for television that you've probably all seen, he works with us. And actually, we're making a movie right now called Whale Wisdom. So we could hear a whale. And Rick was like, I can't find the whale. I don't know where the whale is. And we threw Alyssa in the water, and she came up, and she found the whale. So she's so happy right here. And we make a lot of documentaries, probably, I don't know, worked on at least 20, 25 documentaries for lots of different television stations. And we're in the middle of making a few right now, which is pretty cool. And hence, I, for some reason, received a Lifetime Achievement Award. When was it? A few years ago? 2000, thank you. I ask her everything. 2014 in New York, which is fun. That's Sylvia Earle there, who you all know, who does great ocean stuff. So very exciting. Now, you guys, some of you have seen a little bit of this, but because this is a whaling museum, I want to talk about this because it's so amazing. It's so synchronistic. Go ahead. Okay, whaling voyages. Again, I'm preaching to the choir here, but whaling voyages were typically very long. And the smaller the schooners usually took 6-month voyages, but the bigger ones, sometimes 3 or 4 years, they were gone. You probably know the stories. And the longest whaling voyage is believed to be that of the Nile, and that was 1858 to 69. That was 11 years at sea. It's insane. So whaling in the 1800s, you know, was a large, organized industry and make a lot of money. And the whaling industry provided consumer necessities. The demand was high. This whaling oil would go all over the world, and it's the best oil on the planet for cogs, for watches, for lighting the lamps on the streets of London. And of course, that's why Nantucket did what they did. Well, was there overexploitation? Yeah, I think so. Will certain species ever recover from whaling, even though we've been protecting them for decades? We don't know. Blue whales of the Antarctic are at less than 1% of their original abundance, and we've been protecting them for 40 years. And in New Zealand, where I do a lot of work, those waters teemed with about 27,000 southern right whales, about 30 times as many as today before the oil hunting started. But I mean, I think I don't criticize it all, because a lot of the whalers that I talked to, they just thought they were big fish. It was a job for them. They didn't understand the emotions. They didn't understand that they were mammals, that they had family units. They just didn't understand what they were doing. So nobody's at fault. The whale ship was an isolated community that roamed the ocean. The forecastle, I love this, was black and slimy with filth, very small and hot as an oven. It was filled with a compound of foul air, smoke, sea chests, soap kegs, greasy pans, tainted meat, seasick American whalers, and foreign ruffians. The ruffians were smoking, laughing, chattering, and cursing those who were sick, with groans on one side and yells, oaths, laughter, and smoke on the other. It doesn't sound like a very nice life. But there were women out there. These were the petticoat whalers. And I don't know, Marjan, do you talk about the petticoat whalers at all here? Okay. Great. Okay, because then you'll love this. You'll love this story. Okay, so in 1845, 19-year-old girl by the name of Mary Ann Sherman left New England on the Harrison, and only 3 women sailed that year. And off she went. Her father was so angry. Her father was Zoeth, and he said she died. There's her grave. It says Mary Ann, 1845. She died. She did not. She went out to sea for 5 years. She died in 1850, and they buried her in Rarotonga, in Ngatingia, Rarotonga, and nobody knew that. And it was written up by Joan Druitt in a book, but none of the islanders knew that there was this female whaler that died at age 24, because they didn't really care about papa'as. Papa'as are white people. They were Maoris, and they would eat the papa'as. Now, I'm lucky that they didn't eat Mary Ann. They buried her there. I don't know how they got away with it, but apparently they didn't eat her. But these were warrior people. They were cannibalistic. They were cannibals even up until 100 years ago. They were killing and eating each other. There are recipes on Rarotonga for humans. It's pretty scary. Anyway, her grave is not here. It's in Rarotonga. But when I was in that graveyard, I started walking around, and then I saw all these names. I went Bailey, Bassett, and I was like, this is my family. Oh my God, this woman is related to me. She is my direct ancestor. I had goosebumps. I was shocked. So here was her grave in Rarotonga, and I went and I sat there and sat there and sat there, and then I said, I'm going back to New England, and I'm going to find out everything about this girl. So 50 years between us, Why did we both end up on a little tiny dot in the middle of nowhere when we were both from New England and we had common blood flowing in our veins? I would drift off into the past and compare our lives because we've both seen sunsets and many lonely nights under the stars, storms and waves over the bow, many tail flukes, many breaches. So I put together this little then and now. So she must have spent most of her time looking for whales, as we do from Black Rock and our boats. They used a harpoon to slaughter the mighty beast. We use a harpoon to satellite tag the whales for conservation initiatives. This is a whaling family back then, and this is a whaling family now. They danced with the joy from the money they made from whaling, and we dance for other reasons when we encounter a whale. They harpooned with painful weapons. We harpoon with video cameras on suction cups. They navigated with an octant and a sextant. We use a handheld GPS. Some of the petticoat whalers brought their children on the voyages. My children served as my boat drivers and whale spotters on the research project. They were afraid of the Maori warriors, fearing that they might end up on their dinner table. I invite the warrior families over for dinner and deliver their babies. She lived in a predominantly male world. So do I, but I get to be in charge. They collected sperm whales. We collect whale sperm. They thrived on killing them. We thrive on saving them. They watched the Polynesian vacas go past. We sail the vacas with the Polynesians looking for whales. They listened to songs of humpback whales through the hull of their ships. We drop hydrophones and convert the songs into digital QuickTime files. She listened to the church choir and sea shanties. We listened to humpback whale song and Pink Floyd. They watched whale calves suffer and die. We watch humpback calves breach with the joy of being alive. They fired their guns. We fire ours for genetic samples the size of a small pea. But their guns got bigger, and the hunt got easier. Some people call this research. Others do not. Some countries teach their children to celebrate the hunting of whales. We teach our children to respect all life in our oceans. Marianne and I were both on a similar journey, headed for an unknown adventure into the depths of the mighty Pacific for a life with whales. We've seen baby whales die. We have pierced the flesh of whales for different purposes. We have looked into the eyes of these magnificent creatures. We've watched dolphins off the bow. We've had whale blood on our hands. We've seen the love between mothers and calves. And we were both blessed to live our lives with unforgettable experiences. This is a little bit of Maori, which I've had to learn to speak over the years, but this actually was written for me, so I'm going to read it. Meheri o te moana, me opu te rā, oki mai ko e ki te toa, ta ranga I te iaa, marina I te kare o te moana. And you can see what it means, mermaid of the ocean, when the sun goes down, come back to our nest here in this peaceful harbor in the midst of our ocean. Next steps. We're going to show you another little film, but next steps I thought we'd talk about right now. Our research is revealing valuable science, and as leaders in the marine mammal field, we know that we are capable of obtaining much higher goals. Our 26 years of research data is invaluable to global science, especially in the broader fields of climate change and ocean conservation. So we look forward to exploring opportunities, working together, and collaborating with any of you in the future. I think we're going to collaborate with Scott, that's for sure, and other people here, and Chip and your whole family, and anybody that wants to be part of this project, we'd love to have you on the team. It's really a group effort. So many thanks to all for attending this presentation tonight, and a special thank you to the Nantucket Whaling Museum and the Nantucket Historical Association and your incredible staff, of course, who we've been talking to on the phone forever. And thank you to our gracious hosts, Chip Carver and Anne Delaney, who have been wonderful. And this is a little calf that swam up to me. It's kind of a fun story. I had brain surgery about 1.5 years ago, and I was told that I couldn't go underwater. And I'd spent my life underwater, and I was hanging over a mother and calf, and I was crying because I wanted to dive down, but I knew I couldn't. And up this came this little eye peeking up at me and looking at me from underneath his mom. And then he went back under, and then he came back up, and he swam right up next to me. And he bumped up against me like this. And he knew I couldn't go down. He knew. So I don't usually do this, but I put my arm around him. But my arm was like not very big around him. But I just put my hand on his back, and we swam along together, eye to eye, for a long time. And I think that's the payback. We don't need, all the... This is the payback. We can live on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. This is the payback right here. I think there's one more slide. Yes. If you would like to know more about our project or make a donation, please visit our website. And it's easy. It's whaleresearch.org. And I'm going to get Alyssa to... Can we turn the lights down a little bit and show a very short film? Okay, great. And this was just made for here. So we'll probably put it up on the website, but thought it would be appropriate for here tonight.
Try your best, but you don't succeed. When you get what you want, but not what you need. When you feel so tired, but you can't sleep. Stuck in reverse. When the tears come streaming down your face. Something you can't replace. When you love someone but it goes to waste. Could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. High up above or down below. When you're too in love to let it go. If you never try, you'll never know just what you were. No. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. I will try to fix you. Stream down your face when you lose something you cannot replace. Tears stream down your face, and tears stream down your face. I promise you I will learn from my mistakes. Tears stream down your face, and lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of questions. I don't know if we've gone over our time, because we could probably go for a lot
Yeah,
longer.
we could take a quick 5 minutes or so to do some questions if folks have questions. I can come over to you with a microphone if you have a question for Nan.
Great.
Raising your hand. Oh, we have one over here.
Great.
Thank you. Why do the whales beach themselves? What happens?
That's a great question. Why do whales beach themselves? Well, there are about 100 reasons, at least, probably more. And they beach themselves to put something under their bellies because they will list back and forth and drown. Of course, they need air. And sometimes you'll see other whales or dolphins holding them up. But if they beach themselves, they can breathe. The problem is when the tide goes out, they often die just by crushing their internal organs. But it can be parasites. It can be they've been chased in. Something could... military sonar. I mean, there are many, many reasons, and sometimes we don't even know because the original cause may lead to something else, and then something else, and something else. And of course, when they strand, and we have major strandings in New Zealand. I mean, just sometimes hundreds and hundreds of animals. Well, you do too on the Cape, and it's horrible. And what we've learned to do is find the one that's squealing, the one that's sick, the one that's sometimes led them in because it was sick, because the others are so dedicated to them, they'll follow that one in, and we'll actually shoot it. We have a special way to find exactly where to shoot it and put it out of its misery so that we can turn the other ones around. It doesn't always work. It's a horrible thing. Yeah, it's such a happy story when you have a stranded animal and you get it back out there. Yes?
East coast of Australia, the humpbacks seem to be coming back in fairly good numbers.
Yes.
But on Norfolk Island, off
Yes.
came from, the humpbacks don't seem to be coming back.
Right.
What's
Why?
the difference?
Okay, so that's a great question. In Australia, the whales seem to be recovering really nicely, and it's great. And they're actually coming up from a little bit different part of Antarctica than our whales are. And yet on Norfolk Island, they're not recovered. And more of the whales found on Norfolk Island are some of the same whales from New Caledonia, which are some... it's funny, because New Caledonia has our population of Oceania humpbacks that are endangered, but it also has matches occasionally with Australia. So we don't know. Again, we don't know. You know, we can look at the clades, the genetic clades. We only had the AE, the IJ, and the CD, these three clades of humpbacks, and then we discovered in the South Pacific another clade, so we call it the SP. And so how are these related? in the clade? We don't know. Are they intermingling? Are they producing whales, offspring, mixing clades? We don't know yet. There's so little work done. But we're looking at Norfolk Island because it's an amazing place, and they may have just been hunted out there. And whales may have ancestral memory in their DNA, hardwired in their DNA. We don't know, but it's a great question. Are you from Australia? You're from Norfolk? What? You're from Norfolk Island? Wow. Nice to have you here. That's awesome. I can send you a whole bunch of data from Norfolk.
We email you.
Yes.
Will you send it?
I'll send you everything about it. Okay, great. Yeah, that's part of the consortium. That's really awesome. That's fantastic. Okay.
We have time for one more question, if we have one more question in the audience. I'll come to you in the back.
What is the significance of fishing in the impact of whales coming back at the slow paces or not coming back?
What is the impact? I have to think about this question. Say it again. What is the impact of fishing?
Yeah, like fishing for small mesh fishing on herring, shrimp, krill.
Yep.
And if you've looked at any of the numbers for analyzing biomass of forage fish in relation to whale diets across on a big macro scale.
That's a great question. And I don't study that, but I do read things about it. And I don't think we know the full effect yet, although we do see whales that are emaciated, that aren't getting enough food. And for instance, in the Cook Islands, we have these purse seiners that are licensed by one person in marine resources. He made that decision, and he did not tell anybody. And I have my permanent residency in the Cook Islands now. I was very quiet for a lot of years, but now I really speak out because he's getting paid off by the fishing boats. He's getting a lot of money. And he's saying the Cook Islands is getting a lot of money, but he's getting a lot of money too. So is it coming down to all this huge amount of fishing affecting the whales? Does it all come down to money? And the people are really angry. We have these marches. I mean, we only have 4,000 people on the island of Rarotonga. Sometimes a few more, but we protest all this because we do see emaciated animals. And yes, it does affect them. Look at the sharks that are coming in closer. Look at the seals that are coming in closer. Look at the whales are even coming in closer to feed, to find good food. And it's tragic, in my opinion. I can't answer those exact questions about biomass. I can look them up for you. I do know people that are studying that. But I don't know, my feeling is we just need to cool it and let these animals recover. I'm sure you feel the same way. And so it happens in a lot of countries, but it's really happening big time in the Cook Islands right now. Very upset about it. Good question. Thank you.
I think we have a question from Anne.
Oh.
I want to thank all of you for coming. Nan is a dear friend of mine, and my husband Chip and I were happy to have her come to our island. And I hope you will look up her documentaries. If you will look up a T-shirt, purchase a T-shirt. I think they're cheaper than they are over at Annie and the Teas. And so if you, I told her she's way underpriced today. But I want to thank all of you for supporting Nan and her work. And hopefully we can do a lot more collaboration between Nantucket and the Cook Islands, and we can try to preserve and save our oceans. So thank you.
I think I'm so hooked up. I'm really sorry we have to end it because I'd like to go for another hour or so. But anyway, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for being interested enough to protect the oceans. Thank you.